Hello FFA members. Today what we're going to do is continue our lecture on the cattle industry. Please make sure that you document any questions you may have we're going to use this as the primary resource for our notes dealing with how our cattle industry works. So we're going to continue to define the cattle industry and move into defining terms relating to the cattle industry. We've started to identify the parts already, and we'll work to a cumulative end where we start to judge our cattle. Items that we've kind of left out when we first started are what a cattle are, and they're actually what fall into a family of bovine, which then are closely related to the American bison, like used to roam the prairies. Water buffalo that maybe you've heard of before, and then if you've been to the Omaha Zoo, there's an ancient type of cattle called gaur, and they're all cloven hooved, meaning they have they're split hooved, and these bovine can be split into two groups: Bos taurus and Bos indicus. Taurus being European descent, which would be like over here with our Angus, and Bos indicus being Asian descent, and that being over here with more of what's called a Brahma. These two can interbreed and produce fertile offspring, but they are of two different species. So the Taurus is our European, and the Indicus species would be our Asian. On a side note, this is mostly just fat, by the way, this little hump in the back here, and it's just fat for storage when grasses would get low in the dry, arid regions of Asia. These particular cattle could use that as a fat reserve. The floppy skin is for heat release. Alright. Continue with the starters. A steer cattle is a young cattle that has been castrated. And so I don't know why it doesn't say that, but it should say young cattle that has been castrated. Oh my goodness. These are all sorts of screwed up. How could we ever get these correct? Well, a steer is a castrated male. A heifer is a female that has not calved. A bull is a sexually intact male. A cow is a female cattle that have calved, and a calf is young cattle. Whew, that was lucky we figured that one out. So to review that, steers are castrated, heifers are female cattle that have not calved, bulls are sexually intact males, cows are female cattle that have calved, and calves are young cattle. These calves, cows, bulls, and heifers all are raised, and now you're going to have to skip down. If you've been following along in your notes, we've covered straight down through here. We are now going to skip down a little bit and move into down into this range, okay? So we're going to be moving into here and talking a little bit of how these cows, steers, heifers, and bulls are raised. So one major system in the cattle industry is what's called a cow-calf system. It is where you raise cows, which are female cattle that have calved, that have then calves, which are young cattle. You then take these cows and calves. If you own it, you could take them to a feedlot, or maybe you don't own the cows and calves, you just own the feedlot. A feedlot is a system that finishes calves to a market weight. So our calves out in our shop are currently weighing about 115 pounds. Those are not market weight. And what we're going to talk then a little bit more about is what is market weight. All these cows, calves that are out in pastures are going to be of certain breeds. Now, a breed are just animals that, through selection and breeding, have come to resemble one another and pass those traits uniformly on to their offspring. When we take one breed and we breed it with another one, we call that crossbreeding. In cattle, we do this a lot to gain the good traits of one breed and the good traits of another and get the offspring then that will have better traits. That's called crossbreeding. Or you get the benefits of both breeds. Some of the most famous, and now I'm going pretty quick, but you guys have an ability to push a pause button, and then you can fill in the notes using that pause button. Here, we have the major breeds that I have down on your guys's that we should be identifying for your notes. So here, I'm going to go through the color and the trait for each one of those breeds. And to do that, we're just going to go like this, and an Angus. Anguses are going to be black or solid black. Trait is for meat quality. Red Angus are going to be meat quality also, and they are going to be solid red. Herefords are red, white face, so they'll be red with a white face. They'll be red with a white face. Their trait is docile and mid-framed, so they're not as big. Simmentals are every color imaginable. They're all different types of colors, and they are large-framed animals. They're bigger animals. Charolais are white, and that's solid white. And they're also large-framed. Brahma are also every color, and they're going to be our Bos Indicus breed that we use the most. And so they're going to have, basically just to get a different cross into there, and they have some different traits that we don't have specifically with our other breeds. So those are our major breeds, and so we can continue on through here on your guys' little notes. We have now covered what bovine all the way down to Brahma means. And we also skipped into a little bit of what a cow-calf has. And we're going to go back a little bit to capacity and volume. On your notes at the beginning of the period or yesterday, you can go back to thinking through capacity and volume. And the reason we're raising these cattle and we're selecting these different breeds, like this one over here, if you look through your notes on your different breeds, you can push pause, or I just kind of paused for you. This breed is called a Hereford. This breed over here is a Simmental. When looking at these little ones, you can really see that depth coming across here and the width of, well, it's kind of cut out here with this particular, there we can get it, a lot more width coming across through its hindquarter here with the glutes and the semitendineuses. It's just a bigger animal than what our Hereford is over here. Both are alive, wonderful animals. They just don't have as much meat as what the Simmental has when we start talking about this Hereford. Our muscling here of this Hereford is contrary to that. This one would be a little bit thicker than this last one here. But this Hereford is what's called finished. Finished means it's reached its market weight. A market weight for cattle, so we come down here to this one. This is the market weight, or its finished weight. So that's what our cattle are going to end up being all the way to. It's this 1,200 to 1,400 pounds, and when they get to that range, they're going to be hopefully like this one, a very muscular across its hooks, and it's going to be a long ways from its hooks to pins. It's just going to have a rounded round instead of just a straight up and down. Like if you look at this one, it's very flat, where we come back to this one here, and it's rounded. It's just muscled out. We also want to look at the structure of these animals that we're going to keep around, and the reason we're really concerned about the structure is these cows that we raise up here, these cows, they're going to be around for 8 to 10 years. So this is the typical lifespan of a cow. And they're going to be grazing in an open grassland out in a pasture. So we want the correct structure so that those animals can live and be productive raising calves for us. So that's what we're concerned about, structure. And you can see this one is hocked. The hocks are in, they're knocking, they're narrow. We're splay-footed out. It's just not a very good terms of structure coming across there. She just looks awkward in that back legs, and that they don't. And the reason they're awkward is because the hocks pop in on this little Hereford. Okay, so when we come to here, we have this these cows. They're breeds, and we can be any ones of these breeds or numerous other ones, and they're going to be out in a pasture for 8 to 10 years. And during that time, hopefully we get them bred. And what they'll go through is gestation. And this is the pregnancy time. So in cattle, we call it gestation, just like we do in other animals. It's the pregnancy time. And that cattle, the length of the pregnancy is 283 days. After 283 days, they will give birth to a calf. And so this is our system. They'll give birth to a calf that's weighing about 60 to 100 pounds. And that's about how much our Holsteins weighed out into that range. That cow is going to be weighing about 1,400 pounds. So she's the same weight as a finished out one, but she's going to weigh about 1,400 pounds. If she doesn't have one of these calves, so let's say she doesn't have this, we usually cull her, or what is called sold, or we sell her to a livestock auction as a weigh-up cow. If she does, let's go the other way and say that she isn't. She is going to be pregnant, so we're not going to cull her. We'll raise her with that calf, and we'll wean, which means taking off milk. We'll wean her. The calf will be taken off of milk. We'll call this a weaned calf, is what a stocker is. And this is where it's going to end up going, and that's going to be that system where cattle are finished. And these calves, before they go to the feedlot, it would be our average weight of a weaned calf is going to be about 450 pounds to 700 pounds. It took time it takes to reach typical weaning weight is about 6 to 8 months. And these calves then will be in this feedlot, or this system where cattle are raised to a finished weight, and that's going to take about 6 to calf to a finished weight. And once they're finished, that means they have the correct fat to muscle ratio that the consumer is demanding. This is typically, market weight then would typically be this 12 to 1,400 pounds. So it's going to be that typical 12 to 1,400 pounds. This kind of gets us started into the meat terms, and as we get ready to do those meat terms, this is where we're going to leave off. And so we're going to leave off right here with the meat terms dealing with cattle.